Hello everyone and welcome back to Jay-Z on the Bus. Guess what? We got an adventure planned for today. We get to do a pre-trip inspection on the coach, and I'm going to show you how to condense the coach down so you can go on your next adventure. Hi everybody, what we're going to do now is we're going to start with a pre-trip inspection of the bus. What we're going to do to start is we're going to look underneath the coach and we're going to see if we have any fluid leaks. And if we have a fluid leak, it's a good idea to investigate it. So now that we've ascertained we have no fluid leaks underneath the coach, we're going to move into the engine compartment. The engine is in the rear of the coach, as you can see. This is a 450 horse Cummins ISL, and the first thing that we're going to do in our pre-trip here is we're going to check our belts, and we're going to make sure that our belts aren't worn out. There aren't any chew marks in them from varmints, because varmints can get in here and chew on your belts. And if you do find chew marks on your belts from varmints, it's probably a good idea to check your wires, because those will probably have been chewed too. These are serpentine belts, so if you lose one belt, you'll lose all your belts. So if you lose this belt, you'll lose everything, and if you lose this belt, you'll lose your fan. And if you lose your fan, you'll overheat, because the fan over there is the only way that air is going to be moved through the radiator. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to check is we're going to check all of our lines. We're going to check our air intake lines, we're going to check our water lines, and we're going to check our charging lines for our turbo. And once we make sure that they're all good, they're not leaking anything or they're not falling off, they're all in place, we're going to move on to checking our fluids. And then the first thing we're going to do, the first fluid that we're going to check is we're going to check our engine oil. Pull it out and we wipe it off. We stick it back in. Pull it back out again, and then we look at it and make sure our oil level is good, and our oil level is good. And we put it back in and lock it. Next thing we do is that we're going to check our power steering fluid, which our power steering reservoir is right here. We just pull the cap off and we can see that we have got plenty of fluid in there. Alright, now that we've checked that, we're going to check our radiator fluid now. So we're just going to twist off our cap and get it off here. Alright, we're going to twist off our cap. I'm going to take my flashlight so I remember which pocket it's in. Anyway, I don't have my flashlight, but I can look down in there and I can see the fluid. Usually, you wouldn't have to take your cap off to check your radiator fluid, but for some odd reason, our sight glass was painted over. So, I can't do that, so I just have to take the thing off. Not a big deal, but just make sure you don't do it when it's hot or you'll blow up. Alright, put that back on. Alright, and that will conclude our check in the engine compartment. We're going to do another thing later, we're going to check our transmission fluid later on in the video, but we're going to do that after we've had the engine running for a little bit and our transmission's warmed up. Alright. We're going to shut our computer. And now we're going to move on to the generator. Alright, the next thing to do on the list is to check our generator now. So how we're going to check the generator is first we got to open up the hood here. To open up the hood, we just take our little key and then we unlock our locks here. And then we pull open the hood to reveal the generator. This is a Cummins Onan quiet diesel 8,000 kilowatt generator. And the things that we're going to check on this is we're going to check the oil. And our oil is good. Okay. And now we're going to check our radiator fluid, which we can see that we got plenty of radiator fluid in there. Alright, so now that we checked those two things, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start up the generator. Now, in order to do that, we're going to hold the switch into the off position for about 5 seconds, and then we're going to start it up. And it starts right up. Alright, and this is a good thing to do because you can start up the generator before you disconnect your coach from shore power, so then if you're running the air conditioners, you don't have to shut the air conditioners off in order to unplug it. So it will automatically switch, your coach will automatically switch power to the generator when you start up the generator. Going to close it. Alright, now we're going to check our hub oil on our steer axle and our tag axle. These coaches have hubs on them that are filled with oil instead of grease because of the size of them. So in order to check them, we have to, this always confuses me how to do this, but the reason why I'm doing this on the left side is to show you guys that the hubs are on the driver's side are left-hand threads, so you have to turn it the opposite way than you're used to take them off. You can see that she just spit them out, loosens them. Quite a long bolt here. Okay, now we pulled off our cover there, and now we're going to check, and we're going to see that our oil is at good level inside our hub. Now that we've done that, we're going to put this back on. Screw this back on this way. Tighten it back up. Alright, you don't have to do this every time you take the coach out, but it's definitely good to do it every once in a while, because if you run these hubs without oil in them, you'll essentially burn everything up, and you could cause a fire, so you don't want to do that. And then we just take it and tighten it up. Tighten it up until it stops, which is right there, and there's plenty on there good enough. Alright, so now it's time to start up the coach. Alright, when you first start up the coach, I like to come back here and take a listen to all the things in the engine, make sure everything's running properly, and not making any noises it shouldn't be, and everything's running properly. Now I'm going to go bump up the idle I'm going to go put it on high idle now. Alright, now it's time to shut the slides and get the coach ready to go down the road. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with clearing off our counter. Because if you leave stuff on the counter, when you go down the road, it falls off and makes a big mess and is very annoying. And make sure we shut any drawers that are open. Then we come back through the coach. Look around. Now we're going to shut the slides. And how we shut the slide back here in the bedroom is this little switch right here. We got out and then we got in, which brings in the slide. Real quick, right before I bring the slide all the way in, I'm going to shut off the lights. We're going to finish bringing it in. And you'll know it's all the way in when it stops. And then we shut off our lights in the bathroom. We make sure the shower is locked. We make sure the doors, we make sure that the cabinets are shut. And make sure our drawers are all latched. We shut the bathroom door. We make sure this door is latched. And now we're ready to take our living room slides in. We start out by, we got to put this extension in for the couch. So we slide the cushion down in there and lift up on this little lever here and push it in. And then I put this right here, put the blanket here on top for the cat to sleep on. And now I'm going to shut off the fireplace, put the remote somewhere where it won't fall out, fall on the floor, turn off the lights. We're going to put up our shades so they don't slap like this and drive us nuts going down the road. We're going to stow things. We're going to stow all these metals here so they don't do this going down the road and drive me nuts. We're going to put them right up in here. Then we're going to take these. We're going to put them down here in the bag so they don't fall on the floor and get lost. Right there. Shut the doors. Make sure they're shut. Fan right there. Turn off. Turn the lamps off. Put the lamp down there so it doesn't fall and break. Shut this lamp off. Push it over there in the corner. And now we're ready to bring in our slides. In order to bring in the slides, we got to make sure that these two chairs are forward enough so when this slide comes in, it doesn't hit the chair here. Because if it hits here, it doesn't, let's just say it might rip it or tear it, and we don't want to do that because that turns into a pretty expensive ordeal. So to bring in the slides, we're going to go in here and we're going to go in here, we're going to select through the menu until we see passenger side, and then the passenger slide is the slide here on the right. So when we put it in, we hit retract, and now it's going to pull the slide in. Pulling it in. And when we're pulling these slides in, we're going to be very careful that we don't get any water that comes off the top of these slides. Okay, we'll know it in and when it comes in, it sucks up. And now we're going to do the driver's slide. And that's going to bring the driver's slide in. Alright, now that we have the slides in, we're ready to take up the jacks. In some coaches, you might need to do it reverse. You might need to take up your jacks and then put your slides in. But in this coach, we put the slides in, then take the jacks up. When you get ready to take up your jacks, you need to be careful because some of these slides might get water on top of them. If you get water up here, it will pour out all over the place when it comes off level. So a good idea to keep this from happening is get a couple of old towels and just keep up here, so when it comes down it won't pour water everywhere and pour water all over the controls and all over the seat and just make a giant mess. So to take up the jacks, we come in here and we turn on our power gear leveling system. We wait for it to think. It's thinking. Alright, now you can see it says jacks are down. So now we hit retract all jacks. We wait for it to think and then it will retract the jacks. And it's a good idea when you run this power gear leveling system to have the engine running on high idle because it is electric and it does run off the alternator. So it's a good idea to have the engine running on high idle. Another thing you want to do right before you leave is to secure your refrigerator. You want to make sure that your items in your refrigerator are set back in the refrigerator far enough so that when you stop, they won't come, and when you stop and open the door, that they won't come flying out everywhere. And this is for me, since I don't have a lock for the refrigerator right now, I just tie it up with the jump rope. Plus, it doubles as a thing to make sure that I put down the TV antenna, because you don't want to drive down the road with your TV antenna up. You will take it off on a bridge. So you want to make sure that you put that down. And then you just take and you tie up your refrigerator like so. Okay, so now we're going to check and we're going to make sure that the coach is lifting up. You can see that it's lifting up now. The jacks have retracted and the air suspension's refilling back full of air. And we need to make sure that that the air suspension fills up fully with air and everything is up at ride height, because if it's not, this tire can hit here and damage the fiberglass, or you could crank the drive shaft in the back and destroy your drive shaft, and that's about a $12,000 mistake you don't want to make. So now that we've made sure that our air suspension is fully aired up, we're going to check our tire pressures now. The best way to check your tire pressures is to have one of these Easy Tire TPMS monitoring systems for your coach. This will let you know if you get an air leak or something in one of your tires going down the road, because these tires are your lifeline on a coach. If you don't have the correct pressure in these tires, it can be catastrophic. You could have a blowout, and you don't want to have a blowout. But if you don't have one of these TPMS systems, which I strongly suggest for a motor coach, you can take and you can get this thing from Walmart, which comes with a tire, get it out, comes with a electronic pressure sensor. It's made by Goodyear. Set that down. We can take our little Goodyear electronic tire pressure sensor and we can check our pressures in our tire. You can see that we have 116 psi in this tire, which is a little on the low side, so we're going to go ahead and add pressure to the tire. Okay, now in order to add pressure to our tire, we're gonna open up our front hood here again, where the generator is. We're going to take our handy dandy air hose and we're going to plug it in, turn on the pressure, take our air chuck and plug it in. Now, when you're putting pressure in these tires, you need to make sure that your system, that your air system on the coach is fully aired up to 120 psi. And if you're putting a lot of air in your tires, you need to occasionally pump your brakes to make sure that your compressor is cut in to fill up your tires. So now that we've put air in our tire, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take off our air chuck. We're going to shut the air off to the hose. We're going to be careful because this is going to shoot out of here like a rocket. And there we go. And then we're going to put the hose back underneath our coach and our luggage compartment. Alright, so now that you can see that we've pulled in the slides now, it's made it a lot easier for us to get into our underbay compartments here. So now I can get in here much easier and then pull in my power cord. Just popping that open and then hit my button over here and just pulling in our power cord. It's just a good idea to sit here and kind of just help this cord in so it doesn't bind up on this thing right here. Alright. And now that's it. So now that we've pulled in the power cord, we can look at our aqua hot fluid and make sure it's in the zone here. The aqua hot is cold right now, so that's at a good level for it. Shut that. We're going to shut our compartment door, make sure it shuts. And if we had, since we're at the house right now, we're not hooked up to water or sewer, but if we were, this is at the point in time that we would then take in our sewage and our water lines. Okay, so now that everything has been done, our power cord's in, we can start by locking up our base. And how we do that is we just put it in and lock it. We got to make sure that your bays are shut. Make sure that they're shut because a lot of these bays won't shut and they'll pop open. This one here doesn't have a lock on it because of the propane tank. And then when you go to lock this compartment, it's a good idea to check your windshield washer fluid and make sure you have enough windshield washer fluid. Make sure that your front hood here is latched and your latch under here is, and your latch has been latched under here, because if this latch isn't latched, when you stop at the stop sign, the generator will come flying out. Lock our compartments over here. And now, since we made it back to this compartment, we're going to check our house batteries, and we're going to check the water level in them and make sure that we have plenty of water in them. As you can see, that we got plenty of water in our batteries. See that we have plenty of water in our house batteries. Alright. Now that we've checked the water level in our house batteries, we can shut that door. Lock it. Open this door, make sure there's nothing around the inverter that shouldn't be there, because these inverters do get hot. Make sure there's no anything in there that could obstruct airflow to those. Shut that. check our transmission fluid. Now that the engine's been running a while and it's warmed up and the transmission's warmed up. And you can see that I took it off high idle because to check your transmission fluid, your transmission has to be in neutral and your engine has to be running at low idle. Come in here and pull this out. This is quite a long dipstick. Wipe it off. Back in there. Our transmission fluid is good. Okay, now that I've showed you the first way to check your transmission fluid with the conventional dipstick way, I'm going to show you how to check it on your Allison keypad. This is your Allison keypad, and basically what this is this is how you put your coach in gear. This is drive, neutral, and reverse, upshift, downshift, and then your economy mode, which that just changes your shifting schedule. And what economy mode is when you put it in economy mode, it shifts the coach 200 RPM sooner than what it's supposed to shift. So it shifts in your torque curve instead of your horsepower curve. Alright, so now to check the transmission fluid, we press upshift and downshift. It says with the engine at low idle, and it says oil low 2 quarts. So that means our oil is low 2 quarts. Then we can check our transmission oil life, which is 87% life still left in the oil. We can check our filter maintenance. Our filters are okay. Transmission maintenance, okay. And then codes, no codes. And then we're back to neutral. Alright, so now that I'm sitting down in the driver's seat here, I want to do my air brake test. To check my air system and make sure that my air system functions properly, because the brakes on a big coach like this are not run off hydraulic fluid like they're running a car. They run off air. So the first thing that we're going to do is to check I'm going to check and make sure that the coach is fully aired up by looking at these 2 gauges. This is the primary tank that runs the back brakes and the main air ride suspension, and this is the secondary tank that runs the front air brakes and the front air suspension. We can see that it's fully aired up, so that what we're going to do to start is we're going to check and see what pressure the governor cuts in. We want to make sure that our governor cuts in at about 90 psi, because when you go down the highway and you use your brakes, you deplete air from your air system. So to check the governor cut in, we take and we just press our brake easily, deplete air out, until we see the needle starting to rise. I'm going to put it on high idle so that we can see our you can see now that our needles are rising and our air system's filling back up. And now we're going to check cutout when the governor cuts out. And the governor should cut out here about 120. Alright, the governor just cut out. Okay, our next air brake test is, now we're going to shut off the engine, and this is going to be our applied brake test. So we're going to turn back on the key, wait for the gauges to come back up. We're going to put our foot on the brake, we're going to release the spring brake, and we're going to wait for our needles to stabilize. And you can see now that our needles have stabilized. So now we're going to wait 1 minute and make sure we don't lose any more than 3 psi. Alright, as you can see, it's been 1 minute and we haven't lost any pressure. So now what we're going to do is we're going to check our audible alarm. So in case the coach gets a bad air leak where the air compressor can no longer replace the air that is being diminished out of the system, there will be an air leak. There will be an audible alarm that comes on at about 60 psi. Alright, now you can see that our alarm has come on. Our alarm has come on to let us know that our air system is now down to about 75 psi. And if you're driving down the road and this alarm comes on, and that alarm comes on, you better pull the coach over quickly, because what will happen is if you keep losing pressure out of the system, at about 20 psi the spring brakes are going to pop. And when the spring brakes pop, no matter where you are, you're going to come to a screeching halt. So now we're going to keep depleting air out of the system until our spring brakes pop. And now you can see that our spring brake has popped out. So now we're going to start the coach back up. And we're going to put it on high idle. And if you're curious to how to put it on high idle, you just turn on cruise control. Set takes you to 1200 and reset takes you to 1000. So right now we're going to use 1200. We would use 1000 if we were just idling. If we were just sitting somewhere idling for a long period of time, we would use 1000. So now you can see that we're building pressure back up. Our audible alarm has gone off. And now once we reach 80 psi, we're going to put it back on low idle, and we're going to time the time it takes from the system to get from 80 psi to 100 psi, and it shouldn't really take more than a minute. That is to check and see how strong your air compressor is, to make sure that it will be able to keep up with the coach as you go down the road. And as you can see, it's still building pretty strong. So now that we've reached 100, or are close to 100, we're gonna go back onto high idle at 1200 RPMs to finish filling up the air system until the governor cuts back out. Alright, and there is the purging of the air dryer. So now we know that our air system is fully aired up. Alright, the next test that we're going to do is we're going to do the spring brake test, or the park brake test. And in order to do that, we're going to turn high idle off. We're going to come over here. We're going to put the coach in drive. And we're going to just accelerate to 1200 RPMs. Alright, there's 1200. And we can note that the coach didn't move. So our spring brakes held like they were supposed to. You want to do that test to make sure that your spring brake will hold the coach, so if you're parked on a hill, the thing won't roll away and go and take somebody's house out or just run something over and cause a whole bunch of damage. Our next test that we're going to do is that we're going to drive the coach forward at about 5 miles an hour, and then we're going to hit the brakes and make sure the coach doesn't pull excessively to the left or the right. And you can see I've backed up a little bit to do this. So we're going to put it in drive. Accelerate to about 5 miles an hour. And then stop. And I can note that the coach did not pull at all to the left or right. So we're good. Alright. So the last thing that we need to do on the coach before we go down the road is to check our lights and make sure all of our lights are working. As you can see, all our marker lights are working. Our headlights are working. Our clearance lights up on the roof are working. We're going to check our brights to make sure our brights are working. Our turn signals are all working. Our tail lights, our clearance lights up on the top, our turn signals on the back are all working. And our turn signals going down this side of the coach are working. So the next thing that we're going to check is we're going to check the brake. We're going to check the brake lights and the backup lights. Alright everybody, that concludes the video on how to do a pre-trip inspection on your coach and get your coach ready to go on a trip. So the only thing that's left to do is to do a final walk around and make sure that there's nothing that you're going to run over or crush when you're going to leave. So thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you see us down the road sometime, don't forget to wave. Have a good day, everybody.